Great. Now, this is Peninsula High School up in Gig Harbor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is okay.
Right.
Cool.
At that time, it was Peninsula and Gig Harbor High School separate.
So your journalism career started very early.
Yes,
High school, yeah.
I wrote a little bit for the high school paper, but not
Mm-hmm.
very much. And what happened was, just before I turned 16, junior year, my mother died. And Mr. Skirdall and some particular teachers there kind of helped me along. In other words, they decided I needed to do this and I needed to do that. And I was chairman of the junior prom because I needed to have something to do, I guess. But I was in choir, I love choir, but I think that helped because they steered me into those places. And Mr. Skirdall said, normally there's an editor and an assistant editor, and the assistant editor moves on for the annual. But this year, the assistant was a senior, and so for the next year, they had to have a new editor. And Mr. Skirdall says, we would like you to do it. Oh. But we did it. We turned out a good one.
Now, which year was that?
1958.
1958. Okay.
Ask her about the white boots.
Okay. Our narrator to the immediate left here is Frank Slater, Colleen's husband, and we'll have an interview for him later on. So ask her about the what?
White boots.
Okay, let's hear about the white boots.
Okay, I was, we had a girls' marching group, and I can't remember if we were called majorettes or not, but the leader got to twirl the baton, and she was really good. But we had little short white skirts and green vests and white boots. And I still have those white boots.
You do?
And I think so, that my grandkids tried on.
So you still have those. I was kind of looking and hoping I'd see them here on the museum
If I have,
display
they're pretty
cases.
beat up, but, and we marched in Shelton and the Daffodil Parade, of course, and whatever else came along.
Yeah, very good.
So.
What other high school experiences can you share? That must have been the very early years when that building was first built, wasn't it?
Let's see, Gail was the second year she started there. Joyce Neiman was, my cousin, was the last class here. And then it was, so that was about 5 years before I graduated.
Yeah. Okay.
I was in choir, and I was in drama. I never got to be in a play, but I got to be the prompter and like substitute, except people always came along and filled in. And I don't recall much else in activities.
What classes did you like best in high school?
Well, I loved typing.
Typing.
I had never seen a typewriter before, so to speak. And I liked English. Can still recite part of the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. And there was some English I didn't like. And I did not like general science. And I got my first and only D ever, first grade in general science, and my mother says, you can do better than that. So I never got a D again. But it was not interesting to me. And I loved home ec. So.
What activities did you do around the house? Because obviously there wasn't television at that time, and there weren't cyber games and all of the social media. So
Well, now when television first came, it was the house right around the corner there. And they invited us on Saturday mornings, all the neighborhood kids. And there were a lot of us to begin with. And then as families got TVs, they left. And we were the last ones there. And finally she said, I think the TV times are over. So we got to watch the last morning, and then that was it. But I love to read. And with 5 kids in the family and noisy, especially on rainy days. But on nice days, I like to take a book and a blanket and go from the house across the driveway where there was a tall asparagus patch. I'd go behind the asparagus and lay on my blanket and read. And nobody knew where I was, and I loved it.
great.
But we had chores. One of my chores was to mop the stairs. It was a 2-story house, one my grandfather had built in 1911 and 12 when they were first here. And I did dishes, and I didn't do a lot of cooking until I took home ec, and then I was required to do some cooking at home, so I learned to cook a little bit.
Great, great.
And I played the piano.
So after you finished high school at Peninsula High School and the world opened up to you, what did you do?
Well, I wanted to follow my cousin, who majored in home ec ed, to Oregon, but I couldn't afford that, so I applied to Washington State and got scholarships and family help, and I went to Washington State, graduated in home ed.
Can you share some of your activities or interests there at Washington State?
I lived in Stevens Hall, the oldest women's dorm, and they had a huge teacup collection that people had donated. And we had every spring, I'm not sure who all was invited, but it seemed to me it was lady faculty and whatnot. And we would serve them tea. And we just had, it was a neat dorm to be in, a lot of fun with the gals. And I do recall going out in the evening sometimes, like before Christmas, with one of the, I think it was one of the houses rather than a dorm of boys. And happened that one time I saw a guy I knew from Quinault, where I worked during the summers. So we
Creviston was his name. Local.
No, it wasn't.
Wasn't?
I'll tell you later. But I really